The sky above the alien world was dark and full of lightning. A small human ship flew through the thick clouds, shaking from side to side. Inside, a lone pilot named Jace gripped the controls tightly. "Mayday, mayday, ship going down," he said into the radio, but there was no reply. The storm was too strong, the signals were blocked, and the ship was dying. The engines exploded with a loud boom, and fire shot from the sides. Jace hit the emergency landing button just before everything went black. The ship crashed deep inside a foggy forest, trees cracking and burning as the metal broke apart. When Jace opened his eyes, he was hanging upside down in his seat, blood dripping from his forehead. He unstrapped himself and crawled out of the wreckage. Coughing from the smoke, he looked around. The place was silent, no signs of animals or people, just thick mist and strange sounds in the wind. "Where am I?" he whispered, but no one answered. He grabbed his small survival bag and started walking. His tracker was broken, and the compass spun in circles. He followed a narrow path through the trees, feeling like someone or something was watching him. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, he couldn't tell. Then he saw tall stone pillars rising from the forest floor, covered in glowing symbols. A ruined temple stood between the trees, old and broken, but somehow alive with energy. The air felt colder as he stepped closer, like the place was waiting for him. Jace walked through the ruins, his fingers brushing the strange symbols. One symbol looked familiar, he didn't know how, but it made his heart race. He touched it, and suddenly, a voice echoed in his head, like a whisper from the past. Without thinking, he spoke the word written on the stone. "Elander," he said softly. At that moment, the ground shook, and the stone glowed brighter, somewhere deep beneath the earth. An old machine came to life. Metal doors slid open under the temple, unseen by Jace. A signal was sent out into the sky, reaching places far beyond the forest. Far away, in a hidden city of stone towers and glowing rivers, a girl opened her eyes. She sat in a dark chamber, her long silver hair falling over her shoulders. Her name was Kalra, and she was not fully human. She had been trained since birth to guard the secrets of her people, but she never expected this day to come. "The dead words have been spoken," she said to herself in disbelief. She touched a crystal panel on the wall, and it showed Jace walking through the ruins. "How can he know them?" she whispered, eyes wide with shock. The ancient language was lost thousands of years ago. Not even the elders remembered it completely. Kalra put on her black cloak and left her chamber without telling anyone. She moved through the forest like a shadow, silent and fast. Back at the ruins, Jace felt strange, like someone was nearby. He turned, but no one was there. The temple was darker now, the glowing symbols fading. He sat down on a stone bench, tired and confused. He didn't know that his voice had started something impossible. He didn't know that he had been seen, and that eyes were now watching his every move. Behind a broken pillar, Kalra watched him closely. She had never seen a human before, not in real life, and yet this one had spoken the forbidden word, the one written only in sacred scrolls. He stood up again, looking around. Kalra stepped back quietly, but a branch cracked under her foot. Jace turned sharply, eyes scanning the trees. "Who's there?" he called, holding a broken piece of metal like a weapon. Kalra didn't reply, but she didn't leave either. She had to be sure. She stepped out slowly, hood covering her face, and said something in her own language. It was a test. She spoke a sentence no one had said in generations. Jace stared at her, confused for a moment, then replied without thinking. He spoke the same words back to her, perfectly. Kalra's breath caught in her throat. She took a step back, fear and wonder in her eyes. "You speak the dead language of our ancestors?" she asked in a trembling voice. Jace looked just as confused. "I don't know how," he said, "but when I touched the stone, the words just came out." Kalra vanished into the mist before he could say more. She had to warn the others, or maybe keep him hidden. Something had changed that day. The forest had felt it, the ruins had felt it. And far away, in places untouched for centuries, other ancient machines began to stir. Jace looked at the glowing symbols one more time, not knowing. They had just chosen him. The night fell quickly on the strange planet, and fog covered the trees like a thick, silent blanket. Jace sat near the ruins, a small fire flickering beside him. He kept looking around, feeling eyes watching from the dark. He remembered the girl, tall, silent, hooded, and strange. She had spoken a language he didn't understand, but somehow he had answered her. He wasn't sure if he had dreamed it or if it was real. The way she looked at him still burned in his mind, like he was something impossible, like he wasn't supposed to exist. Deep in the forest, Kalra moved like a ghost, fast and quiet. She returned to her hidden city where no outsider had ever walked. But instead of going to the elders, she entered the Hall of Silence. It was forbidden, but she had no choice. Inside the hall stood the old voice stones devices left behind by their ancestors. Only a few could still speak to them, and even fewer could understand their replies. Kalra placed her hand on the smooth stone and spoke carefully. "The human speaks the lost tongue," she said. "How is it possible?" The stone glowed softly and answered in broken whispers. "He is not what he seems," it said. "He is both born and made." Kalra stepped back, heart pounding. She had never heard the stone speak with such force. A human who spoke the sacred language? It could only mean one thing: he was part of the prophecy, or a danger greater than war. The next morning, Jace woke up with ash on his face and cold in his bones. His fire had died, and so had the warmth in the air. But something else had changed. He found a trail of stones placed in a line, leading deeper into the trees. Someone wanted him to follow. He thought about turning back, but curiosity pushed him forward. He followed the path through the woods, over roots and broken branches. It felt like walking into a trap, but also like being called by something ancient. After hours of walking, he reached a large stone gate hidden in vines. As he stepped through, he entered a wide clearing with tall trees and strange statues, and there, waiting in the center, was Kalra. This time she didn't hide. She removed her hood, and Jace saw her full face for the first time. She had glowing violet eyes and silver lines on her skin, like old tech merged with flesh. She looked young, but her eyes felt old, like they had seen centuries. Kalra raised her hand, and Jace stopped moving. She spoke again in the strange tongue, this time more carefully. He hesitated, then replied again in the same language. Her eyes widened. He had passed the first test. But that wasn't enough. She picked up an old device from the ground, a cube with glowing sides. She tossed it to him, and it clicked in his hand like it recognized his touch. He didn't know what to do, but the cube began to float and glow. He saw flashes in the air, images from the past, tall beings like her people, building towers and speaking the language he now used. And in the center of them stood a figure that looked just like him, his face, his eyes, but dressed in their robes, holding the same cube. Jace dropped the cube in shock. Kalra stepped forward slowly, her voice low. "You're not the first," she said, "but you may be the last." Before he could ask anything, loud horns echoed through the forest. She turned quickly, panic on her face. "They found us," she said. "We have to run." Jace had no idea who they were, but he followed her as she ran through the trees. Branches slapped his face, roots pulled at his feet, but he kept going. Behind them, lights appeared in the forest, blue and red beams cutting through the mist. Voices shouted in a harsh language, and metal footsteps followed. They reached a narrow cliff path, and Kalra pointed to a crack in the rock wall. Inside was a tunnel, dark and tight, but safe from the patrols. They climbed in, breathing hard, heartbeats pounding in their ears. As they crawled deeper, Jace asked, "Who are they?" Kalra looked at him with fear and anger. "The ones who believe the past should stay dead," she said, "and they will kill anyone who speaks its words." Jace didn't answer, but he understood one thing. speaking the ancient language had placed a target on his back. And now he wasn't just lost on an alien world. He was the center of a secret war. The tunnel grew darker, and the path ahead twisted into shadows. Kelra didn't speak again, but her hand stayed close to her weapon. Jace followed, the ancient cube still glowing faintly in his bag. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was just the beginning, and whatever waited in the shadows was already awake. The path inside the tunnel seemed endless. Jace could barely see Kelra ahead of him, her shadow moving like smoke through the narrow space. The walls were covered in marked symbols, carved by hands long forgotten. They glowed dimly when he passed. Them, reacting to something inside him. He didn't understand the symbols, but they felt familiar, like a memory trying to wake up. At last, the tunnel opened into a wide underground chamber. Crystal lights floated in the air, casting a cold blue glow over the stone floor. In the center stood a tall statue of a robed figure, arms raised to the sky. Jace stopped in front of it, heart beating faster. The face carved into the stone, it looked like him. Kelra stepped beside him and stared up at the statue in silence. "This was built before even my people had names," she said. "Our oldest stories begin here." Jace touched the statue's hand, and the floor beneath them lit up with ancient light. The symbols on the walls came alive, spinning in circles, glowing brighter than ever before. A soft wind moved through the chamber, though there were no doors or windows. A voice, old and deep, echoed around them, speaking in the dead language. Jace could understand every word, even though he didn't know how. "When the sky bleeds fire, and the dead tongue speaks again," said the voice, "one shall rise, born of two worlds, forgotten by both. He shall awaken the echo gate, and the sleeping city will rise." Kelra looked at Jace, her face pale. "That's the prophecy," she said slowly. "Our people feared it, so they buried it." "Why?" Jace asked, feeling a strange pressure in his chest. "Because the one who speaks the dead tongue," she said, "brings both salvation and destruction." The cube in Jace's bag floated out on its own and began spinning in the air. It projected more images, beams of light shooting into the sky, ships falling from orbit, cities burning, and then peace. Aliens and humans walking together under a sky filled with stars. It ended with the same figure again, his face older, wiser, alone. Jace stepped back, shaking his head. "That's not me," he said. "I'm just a scout, a pilot. I crash-landed here." Kelra nodded slowly, but her eyes said something else. "You don't remember," she said. "But the language is inside you. The images are inside you. You were chosen long before this life." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber. Part of the wall broke apart, revealing a new tunnel and footsteps, not soft like Kelra's, but heavy, armored. She drew her blade and pulled Jace behind her. 3 alien warriors entered, their armor covered in black metal and red lights. One of them pointed at Jace and growled, "The cursed one has returned." Kelra stood firm, her weapon humming with energy. "He's not your enemy," she said. "He's the key." The warriors raised their guns, and Jace could feel the fear rising in his throat before anyone could fire. The cube pulsed with light and let out a blast of sound. Everyone dropped to their knees, grabbing their heads in pain. Symbols burst across the chamber walls, too fast to read. Then silence. When Jace opened his eyes, the warriors were unconscious. Kelra was breathing hard, blood on her lip. The cube floated back into his hand like a loyal pet. Jace stared at it, then at the fallen warriors. "What is this thing?" he asked, voice trembling. Kelra wiped the blood from her mouth and said, "It's not a weapon," she whispered. "It's a key to your past." She helped him up and pointed to the broken wall. "We must go deeper," she said. "There is one more test, one only you can face." They moved quickly now, deeper into the tunnels. Behind them, the air began to shake, like the planet itself was waking up. The old machines had felt his presence, and they were no longer asleep. Far Above the ground, in the mountains beyond the city, a metal spire lit up for the first time in 10,000 years. Inside it, a giant eye opened, red and cold, scanning the sky. Something had begun that could not be undone, and Jace, whether he liked it or not, was at the center of it all. Asterisk. The tunnel opened into darkness so deep it felt like stepping into a forgotten dream. Jace followed Kelra without speaking. He was still thinking about the prophecy, the glowing cube, and the image of his own face carved in stone. He didn't want to believe it, but deep inside, something had started to wake up, memories he didn't know were his flashed in his mind, stars, machines, voices that were not human. They moved through the narrow stone path until the air changed. The scent of dust and metal filled his nose. The walls ahead widened, and suddenly, they stepped into a massive chamber hidden under the earth. What Jace saw stole the air from his lungs. A dead city stretched out before them, trapped under layers of stone and time. Tall towers made of crystal and black iron reached up into the rock ceiling. Floating platforms hung in midair, frozen in time. Statues lined the streets, strange alien forms with wings, horns, and arms like folded blades. This was the first city, Kelra said softly. The place of the beginning. No one has set foot here for 10,000 years. Jace walked forward slowly, each step echoing through the stillness. The symbols on the walls whispered. As he passed, they glowed for him but remained dark for Kelra. She watched in silence. More certain than ever, he was the one the city waited for. They reached a large plaza with a giant machine in the center. Shaped like a ring, Jace felt pulled toward it. Like it remembered him. He touched the edge of the machine, and it came alive with a deep humming sound. Lights turned on one by one, and the floor beneath them began to shift. Far above, deep in the mountains, the spire that had awakened earlier sent out a signal. That signal reached the ancient city, and something answered it. From the shadows of the tall towers, something stirred. A sentinel, large and cold, made of ancient metal and bone, rose from its resting place. Its single eye turned red as it scanned the plaza. It saw Kelra standing beside Jace and began to move. Its voice echoed like thunder. "Unauthorized guardian detected," it said. "Traitor." Kelra's eyes widened. "That machine thinks." "I'm the enemy," she said. "It hasn't seen anyone in centuries. It's still following old orders." The sentinel moved fast, too fast for something so big. Kelra grabbed Jace's arm and pulled him behind a fallen pillar just as the ground exploded. Shards of stone flew through the air, and the sentinel stepped closer, scanning for targets. Jace looked at the cube in his hand. It was glowing again, but not stable, flashing, shaking, as if confused. "Why won't it work?" he shouted. Kelra reached into her cloak and handed him a metal key with a strange symbol. "Insert this into the city gate," she said. Now Jace ran through the smoke and fire, dodging laser bursts and falling stone. The sentinel turned toward him, ready to fire. Jace reached the ring-shaped gate and slammed the key into a slot. The machine roared to life, and a beam of light shot into the sky. The sentinel froze in place, its eye blinking. A new voice echoed across the city. "Guardian override accepted," it said. Awaiting command from language bearer. Jace stared at the machine, heart racing. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. Kelra shouted from behind cover. "Speak from your memory, not your mind." Jace closed his eyes, and the words came to him like an old song. He spoke in the dead language, his voice deep and full. The sentinel lowered its weapon, then shut down completely, returning to sleep. Silence returned to the city, but the light above the gate stayed strong. Something deeper had awakened, not just a machine, but the city's soul. Kelra stepped out from behind the pillar. Breathing hard, "You spoke like a ruler," she said. "Like one who once commanded this place." Jace didn't answer. He was looking at the city with new eyes now, not as a visitor, not even as a stranger, but as someone returning home. They moved deeper into the city, following the beam of light. It led them to a temple-like structure with broken doors and shattered glass. Inside, more machines lined the walls, recorders, memory banks, and control panels covered in dust. Jace approached one of them, placed his hand on it, and it turned. On the screen showed a star map. Earth was there, circled in red, but next to it was another world, marked with the same symbol as the cube. Kelra looked at the map and said in a low voice, "That's your real origin, isn't it?" Before Jace could answer, the floor shook again. This time it wasn't the Sentinel. It was something bigger, older, and it was waking up from far beneath the dead city. Jace backed away from the console. Whatever they had unlocked wasn't finished. Yet Kelra drew her blade again, ready for what came next, and far below, hidden in the planet's core, a forgotten gate began to open. The ground beneath the dead city trembled like a heartbeat returning after a long sleep. Dust rained from the ceilings, and strange lights flickered through the ancient glass above. Jace stood frozen near the console, the star map still glowing. Behind him, Kelra gripped her blade, her eyes fixed on the cracks forming in the stone floor. Something was rising, something the city had hidden for ages. A low hum filled the temple as a platform slowly lifted from the center of the room. On top of it sat a small orb, dark and smooth, pulsing with faint blue light. Jace felt drawn to it, the same way he had felt drawn to the ancient symbols in the cube. He stepped forward, hands shaking, and reached out. "Careful, Kelra." Warned, "That's a memory core, not a toy." Jace touched the orb, and the world around him disappeared. He stood in a different place now, bright and endless. Stars floated around him like fireflies, and strange machines hovered in the air. He looked at his hands, but they were not his own. They were older, steadier, wrapped in black gloves marked with glowing lines. A figure stood in front of him, tall, wearing ancient robes. The figure spoke in the dead language, and Jace understood every word. "You are more than flesh," the voice said. "You were made for memory. You carry echoes of us." The stars changed, and Jace saw scenes play out like dreams. Alien engineers standing around a chamber, building something, someone. It was him, or at least a version of him. They spoke of balance, of two bloods joined into one body, of placing knowledge inside a human shell, and sending it to sleep. He saw Earth from above, then saw his own birth, not in a human hospital. But he wasn't born clean. He was born carrying something hidden. Ancient words, old commands, locked deep inside his cells. The memory faded like smoke in the wind, and he was back in the temple. Kelra stood close now, staring at him. "You saw something," she said. Jace nodded slowly. "I saw the truth," he whispered. "I wasn't just lost, I was planted." Kelra looked shaken. "So you were made by them," she said. "Our ancestors." Jace didn't answer right away. He was still hearing the words in his head. "You carry echoes of us." It wasn't just language he carried. It was their memories, their design, their plan. He sat down, suddenly feeling heavy. "Am I even real?" he asked, almost to himself. Kelra crouched beside him. "You feel real," she said gently. "You bleed, you fear, you hope. Real enough for me." Jace looked up, surprised by her softness. For the first time since the crash, he felt something warm in her voice. Before he could say anything more, a new sound echoed through the temple. A voice deep and metallic spoke in the dead language, but different, cold, commanding. "The key has been activated," it said. "The gate must open." Jace stood quickly. "Who said that?" Kelra pointed to a black screen across the room. A strange face appeared, half metal, half flesh, with glowing eyes. It stared at Jace like it knew him. "I am the last prime memory," it said. "Your awakening begins the final phase." Kelra stepped back. "Final phase of what?" she asked, but the screen flickered and died. The platform where the orb had risen began to lower again. But this time, instead of sinking quietly, it cracked apart. Below it was a tunnel of glowing lines that led downward deeper than the city. Jace and Kelra looked at each other. Neither spoke, but they both knew this was the path now. No turning back. They climbed down into the tunnel, the walls alive with memories. As they walked, Images played beside them. War, peace, death, birth, stars exploding and being born again. Kalra touched one of the images and gasped. It was a memory of her people, before they lost their language. They were builders, scientists, explorers, not warriors. She looked at Jace with wide eyes. They lied to us, she whispered. The past wasn't destroyed, it was hidden, Jace nodded. Maybe that's why I was made, he said, to bring it back. Far above them, the sky began to change. Clouds twisted into spirals, and the stars blinked strangely. And in the deep space beyond the planet, something ancient began to move. It had waited a long time for this moment, and now it was coming home. Asterisk, the tunnel twisted for miles, deeper than any place Kalra had ever seen. Jace walked ahead, the glowing cube floating silently beside him. He didn't speak, and Kalra didn't ask questions. Something had changed in him since touching the memory orb. He moved like someone who finally knew where he was going. The air grew warmer the farther they went. Cracks in the walls revealed veins of living metal pulsing with power. It was as if the planet's heart was waking up, one beat at a time. They reached a massive chamber with a single black door, tall, sharp, and ancient. The door had no handle, no control panel, just a symbol carved at the center, the same symbol Jace had seen in the star map. He stepped forward, placed his hand on the door, and it melted away without sound. Behind it stood a control room filled with sleeping machines. Holograms flickered to life, showing cities in space, data streams, and alien faces. But one screen showed something different: Kalra's city. Above the surface, smoke was rising from its towers. Kalra gasped. "They've started the purge," she said, her voice shaking. "Purge?" Jace asked. "The High Council," she said. "They believe the prophecy is a threat. They've told the people I betrayed them. They think killing you will stop what's coming." Jace stared at the screen, fists clenched. "So, they're choosing war," he said. Kalra looked away, ashamed. Some would rather destroy the past than face the truth. The cube began to spin wildly in the air, glowing brighter than ever. The machines responded. Lights lit up across the chamber, and a platform rose from the floor. A soft voice spoke from above. "Voice confirmed," it said. "Ship unlocking." From outside the room, metal walls shifted and opened, and through a hidden tunnel, a ship floated forward, sleek, silent, and covered in the same ancient symbols. It hovered in the air like it had waited thousands of years for this exact moment. Kalra stepped back, stunned. "This is not just a ship," she said. "It's the Echo Gate, the gate that links minds and memory." Jace looked at the ship, then at the city burning on the screen. He knew what he had to do. "I'm going up there," he said. Kalra grabbed his arm. "They'll try to kill you," she said. "They'll see the ship and fire everything they have. Then they'll destroy their own past forever." Jace nodded. "Then I have to show them the truth before that happens." He stepped onto the platform, and the ship responded like it remembered him. The doors opened, and the lights inside welcomed him home. Kalra followed, unsure of what came next, but unwilling to let him go alone. The ship rose slowly, breaking through layers of rock and forgotten tunnels. It reached the surface just as the sun began to rise. Above them, defense towers locked onto the unknown target. Kalra opened a signal channel and spoke in her people's language. "Do not fire," she said. "The one you fear is not your enemy." But the signal was blocked, and missiles were already launching. Jace stood at the center of the ship and touched the main console. The cube slid into a slot, and energy spread through the ship like lightning. The Echo Gate pulsed once, and then sent a wave across the sky. The missiles stopped mid-air, frozen like insects in amber. Everyone in the city below felt it. Images flooding their minds, visions of the old world, of their peaceful beginning, of the true purpose behind the dead language and the memory bearers. Inside the High Council chamber, the elders fell silent. They saw themselves as children, playing. In the same halls they now ruled. They saw the truth, and for the first time in centuries, they listened. Kelra watched from the ship as her people dropped their weapons. The towers powered down, the missiles vanished. She turned to Jace, who stood quietly, the cube glowing near his heart. "You didn't fight them," she said. "You showed them." "What they forgot." Jace nodded. "This wasn't about war," he said. "It was always about memory." But even as peace settled over the city, the stars above flickered unnaturally. Kelra saw at first 3 strange lights moving across the sky. She whispered, "They saw the signal." Jace looked up as the ship's screen flashed red, "Incoming." Vessels not from this world, not from Earth either. From the old enemy that erased the ancient language long ago, the ones who feared its return. Jace looked at Kelra. "We brought peace to one world," he said. "Now we have to protect it." The Echo Gate's engines powered up again, and the stars began to shift. The stars burned like open eyes above the world. 3 enemy ships tore through the black sky, shaped like daggers, silent and fast. They came from beyond memory, beyond history. Long ago, they had silenced the ancient language with fire. Now, they had returned to finish what they started. Inside the Echo Gate, Jace stood still, his hand resting on the glowing console. The ship hummed around him, responding to his thoughts like a living thing. Kelra stood beside him, her fingers curled tightly around the hilt of her blade. She had seen her people choose peace, but peace was fragile, and now it was under attack. "Will you fight them?" she asked, her voice calm but cold. Jace didn't answer right away. He was staring at the cube, which now pulsed not just with memory, but with something deeper. A voice within it whispered, not in words, but in feeling, this wasn't just a ship. And he wasn't just a man. He was the last bridge between 2 ancient truths. One of the enemy ships fired a pulse weapon at the surface. It hit far outside the city, but the shockwave rattled the towers. Jace closed his eyes and spoke a phrase in the dead tongue. The console glowed white, and a shield of pure thought spread over the city. Not metal, not energy, but memory alive and intelligent. The enemy ships circled like vultures. Confused by what they saw, they sent a signal, strange and sharp. The Echo Gate responded by projecting an image into the sky, a memory of the last war, when voices were stolen and stars turned red. The enemy ships paused, as if recognizing something long forgotten. But then the lead ship broke formation and charged. It sent a bolt of dark matter straight toward the Echo Gate. Jace didn't move. He only whispered another phrase. The cube responded, opening a hidden part of the ship, a chamber of silence. Where voices were kept, Kelra followed him inside, and what she saw stole her breath. Thousands of glowing threads floated in the air, each one a voice from long ago recorded, preserved, waiting to be heard. Jace stepped into the center and raised his hand. One by one, the threads moved toward him. They passed through his body, entering his mind and heart. He did not just hear them, he became them. Warriors, builders, singers, scientists, mothers, children. Every voice became part of him when he opened his eyes. They glowed with gold light. He walked back to the control room, where the ship was shaking from another impact. Kelra looked at him with wonder and fear. "You're not just Jace anymore," she said. "No," he replied. "I am the voice of the ancients." He spoke one final command in the dead language, and the ship responded with a sound like the beginning of time. A wave of pure memory rushed into space, reaching the enemy ships. It didn't destroy them, it showed them everything they had hidden, everything they had broken, the languages they erased, the people they silenced. The lead enemy ship stopped, its weapons powering down. The other 2 followed, slowing, turning. Kelra watched in awe as the black ships folded like paper and vanished into the stars. Not defeated, but changed, the Echo Gate lowered its shield, and the city below began to cheer. People poured into the streets, lifting their eyes to the sky. The war had ended without blood, without fire. Jace had used the oldest power truth. Kelra stepped beside him, the ship now calm. She looked at the stars where the enemy had vanished. "They saw what we were," she said. "Not what they feared," Jace nodded. They were afraid of our voice, he said, because it could not be controlled. The cube returned to his hand, its glow softer now. He looked at Kelra and asked, "What happens now?" She smiled gently. "Now," she said, "we remember." The ship began to descend slowly, light breaking over the horizon. The city welcomed them as symbols reappeared on the towers. Glowing with hope, Jace had come from the sky, a stranger with no past. Now he was their memory, their bridge, their voice. And as the sun rose, Kelra spoke to the crowd. "This man speaks the dead language of our ancestors," she said. "But today, it is no longer dead." And the crowd answered not in fear, but in the same old tongue. For the first time in 10,000 years, the language lived again.